Hello, welcome from Roslin Chapel. I'm Margaret, one of the guides. Today the carving that interests me here at the chapel is in the south aisle. It's this carving here, a carving of a bearded man with horns holding something in both hands. Who or what does this carving represent? Well, one interpretation suggested that this was a carving of the devil, counting the number of souls that he had ensnared. Others have suggested that it represents a Viking warrior. But actually, this is a carving of Moses. But why did that Old Testament figure, why was he depicted in this way with horns? Well, it seems to stem from a translation or a mistranslation from the Hebrew scriptures into the Vulgate, which was the Latin translation of the Bible, and translated by St. Jerome in the 4th century. Now, in the book of Exodus, chapter 34, verses 29 to 30, there is a description of Moses' face when he came down from Mount Sinai with the commandments. In the Hebrew scriptures, Moses, his face was described as radiant because he had been speaking to God. The Hebrew word that was used was keren. Now, my understanding of biblical Hebrew is that it had a very limited vocabulary, and often a word could have more than one meaning. So, whilst keren could mean ray of light, radiant, it could also mean horn. When Jerome came to translate from the Hebrew scriptures into Latin, into the Vulgate, he chose to use the Latin word cornuta, which meant horned. And so, for the first time, we have in the Latin Vulgate a description of Moses with a horned face. Now, was this really a mistranslation on the part of St. Jerome? Well, I'm not quite so sure. After all, Jerome was a very learned man. He had been asked by the Pope to update the Vulgate. He was very well versed in ancient Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. And it's very important to remember that in ancient times, horns were often used to symbolize strength, leadership, and power. Certainly qualities and characteristics that could be attributed to Moses. And so I tend to agree with those who suggest that by using the word cornuta, meaning horned, Jerome was trying to convey the idea that when Moses came down from the mountain, his face was actually imbued with strength, and not literally that it was horned. But because the Vulgate was the most widely used version of the Bible in the Western world at that time, the wording led to the literal translation that Moses had horns protruding from his face. So this led to a widespread depiction of a horned Moses in Christian art of the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. In churches and cathedrals throughout the world, carvings, paintings, sculptures of a horned Moses can be seen. But undoubtedly, the most famous horned Moses is the sculpture by Michelangelo, which was commissioned by Pope Julius II in the 16th century. And that can be found in the church of San Pietro in Vincoli in Rome. However, having said all of that, we here at Roslin Chapel in Midlothian, Scotland, have our very own carving of Moses with horns, and we believe that this was done in the 15th century. Why not come along and see our horned Moses for yourself and many of our other interesting carvings that we have here? We look forward to your visit.